Tehran, District 3, 22 hours ago. At the junction of Vali-e-Azar Street and the Parkway Bridge, something feels wrong. In a city of nearly 9 million people, the absence of sound is unnatural. This isn't calm. It's a pause engineered by force, a deliberate stillness before violence resumes. Then it breaks. Not with a scream, but with a sharp, brittle crack. The unmistakable snap of a paintball launcher fired at extreme velocity. A split second later comes a heavier impact, a 40-millimeter tear gas canister slamming into the pavement. The atmosphere transforms immediately. CS gas floods the air, mixing with thick black smoke from burning refuse. Darkness is pierced by orange flares, and only then do the screams begin. But stop the footage at 0:14. Look closely. This is not chaos. This is not an uncontrolled riot. Through the grainy video, leaked via fragile VPN connections, a structure emerges, a pattern. The motorcycles are not charging at random. They are maneuvering with intent. Standard-issue Honda 125s used by the Bayside militia are executing a coordinated pincer movement, an infantry tactic lifted straight from conventional warfare and repurposed for city streets. Each unit moves in pairs. One rider controls the terrain. The second carries a baton or a shotgun. This is not law enforcement. This is urban counterinsurgency directed at civilians. Tonight, Tehran has been plunged into darkness. Power and internet severed to obscure what follows. But across the city, people are lighting up, not only with Molotov cocktails, but with something far more dangerous to the regime: the loss of fear. What we're witnessing threatens to burn through a 4-decade-old theocratic system. Ali Khamenei is confronting his worst possible scenario: a population that no longer fears repression, and an economy that can no longer sustain obedience. The question now is stark. Is this the beginning of the end, or the beginning of something even more severe? A transformation of Iran into a sealed, militarized state? A Middle Eastern version of North Korea? The answer isn't found in slogans. It's found in the forensic details of last night. What began as outrage over the death of Mahsa Amini has evolved into a prolonged war of attrition. This is no longer an emotional uprising. It is an existential struggle between a regime and a society pushed past its limit. The rising death toll is not just a statistic, it is a panic gauge. And right now, that gauge is redlining. The real question is no longer who is protesting. It is how much force the state must apply to fracture a population that is already fractured. And what happens when even extreme violence stops working? Before we dissect the mechanics of this crackdown and the geopolitical tremors radiating from Tel Aviv to Washington, one thing must be understood. To grasp the blood on the streets of Sanandaj or the smoke rising over Zahedan, we have to zoom out. We must examine the system producing this violence. For 40 years, the Islamic Republic has relied on a 3-pillar architecture of control. First, the morality police, Gasht-e-Ershad. Second, the intelligence ministry, VAJA, and finally, the ultimate enforcement arm, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This framework was built to survive invasion and suppress dissent. But it carries a fatal flaw. It was designed for another era, another economy, another generation. Now the machine is overheating. The unspoken social contract, restricted freedoms exchanged for economic stability, has collapsed. Inflation is nearing 50%. The rial has lost nearly a third of its value in months. Food prices are exploding. The regime has exhausted its incentives. What remains are truncheons and bullets. The unrest is not confined to affluent northern Tehran. It is spreading through working-class neighborhoods in the south, across Kurdish regions in the west, and into Baluchi provinces in the southeast. This is a multi-front internal conflict. And like any besieged fortress, the state is deploying its most loyal and most ruthless units. Confirmed reports indicate the deployment of the Saberin unit, IRGC special forces trained for combat against foreign armies and separatist insurgents, now operating inside civilian population centers. Their adversary is no longer an armed group. it is teenagers. But the brutality has evolved. Medical data emerging from Kurdistan and Mazandaran reveals a disturbing pattern. Shotgun injuries are not randomly distributed. They are concentrated on faces, eyes, and genitals. This is not dispersal. This is deliberate mutilation. Birdshot, hundreds of tiny pellets fired at close range, functions as a human shredder. Ophthalmologists in Tehran have quietly documented hundreds of blinding injuries. Victims are intentionally left alive, permanently disfigured, walking warnings to everyone else. The message is unmistakable: protest and you lose your sight. Then there is the Basij operational doctrine. The militia operates using shock and awe tactics, adapted for dense urban environments. Their motorcycles allow access to narrow alleys beyond the reach of police vehicles. Paintball guns are used not for crowd control, but for tagging. Protesters marked at dusk are tracked down and arrested hours later, often in pre-dawn raids. This is not crowd suppression. It is a data-driven dragnet. The number of detainees has now surpassed 19,000. Many are not formally arrested. They vanish into a judicial void. Charges like mohareba, enmity against God, are revived. These are capital crimes. Trials last minutes. Executions are rapid and public. And yet something is wrong. Despite the violence, the system is failing to achieve compliance. Alongside physical repression comes digital suffocation. The regime has activated the National Information Network at full capacity. This is not a simple internet shutdown. It is a precision throttling operation. International bandwidth is reduced to near unusable levels, often below 100 kilobits per second, while internal banking and government services remain functional on the isolated halal internet. Protesters are cut off from the outside world without collapsing the economy. When NetBlock's data shows a sudden drop in traffic from a province, casualty reports almost always spike within 24 hours. Silence is the prelude. First the blackout, then the assault. But the state faces a deeper crisis. Money is running out. Strikes are beginning in the oil sector, the economic lungs of the regime. The Council of Oil Contract Workers has issued warnings. If bazaar merchants and oil workers join students on the streets, the balance of power shifts instantly. Students can be beaten. Oil cannot be forced to flow. A general strike would paralyze the state's ability to pay its security forces. If salaries stop or become worthless, loyalty dissolves. This internal bleeding is occurring as Iran escalates abroad. While batons swing in Tehran, Shahed 136 drones are shipped to Moscow for use in Ukraine. These weapons have become geopolitical currency. Tehran supplies drones. Moscow supplies diplomatic cover at the UN. But this strategy carries risk. The brutality has effectively killed the remnants of the nuclear deal. Western governments, pressured by their own publics and diaspora communities, can no longer justify engagement. The bridge is burned. Iran is cornered. And cornered regimes are volatile. Uranium enrichment has surged past 60%, dangerously close to weapons grade. This is nuclear leverage. Blackmail is designed to deter intervention. Israel is watching closely. Military drills simulating strikes on Iranian facilities are underway. If the regime believes collapse is imminent, the temptation to sprint for a bomb as final insurance grows. That decision would ignite a regional war, one that would dwarf the current unrest. So where does this lead? We are approaching a binary outcome. Either the uprising is crushed through overwhelming force at the cost of total isolation. The economy retreats into smuggling and black markets. The IRGC absorbs the state entirely, discarding the clerical facade. Iran becomes a militarized pariah, impoverished, nuclear-armed, and permanently mobilized. Or the pressure fractures the system itself. What we are witnessing now is not a protest cycle. It is a tectonic shift, and history shows that once these plates begin to move, they do not stop quietly.